Okay, here we go. Imagine this for a second. Like, really try to feel it. You open your eyes, and there's nothing. Not because it's dark, like in a bedroom with the lights off, but true darkness. Like your eyes aren't even open. Like your eyelids are glued shut. And then it hits you. The cold. The air isn't fresh, it's thick, almost wet. There's a smell too. Not rot, but something old, something wrong, like soil or wood soaked in dampness for too long. Your chest tightens, not from panic yet, but from pressure. There's a weight pressing down on you. You try to lift your arms, but there's barely space to move. Your fingers brush against something above your face. It's hard, solid. Your knuckles hit it. Thud. Wood. Then you realize you're not in your bed. You're not in a room. You're inside something. Something small, cramped, box-like. You're trapped, and the panic, oh, it slams into you like a truck. Your breathing kicks up, fast, shallow. You're sucking in air, but it's not enough. You scream, but it's muffled by your own ragged breath and the way the sound bounces back at you, like shouting into a closet, but smaller, tighter, dead quiet. And now your mind catches up. That surface above you, that's a lid, and it's nailed shut. That's exactly what happened to Mark Johnson, a completely average dude by all standards. Works a steady job in IT, drinks too much coffee, obsessed with indie horror games and Reddit rabbit holes. On weekends, he hikes to unwind. Has a roommate, regular life, no drama, no enemies, no shady secrets. One Friday night, after a normal work week, he texted his roommate that he was gonna chill in his room and crash early. Ordered food, scrolled TikTok. Nothing weird. Except he never made it to Saturday. At some point between the last sip of his cold brew and the beginning of a random YouTube video about survival bunkers, he blacked out. No pain, no struggle, no break-in, just black. And when he opened his eyes again, it wasn't to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window. It was to pitch black darkness, damp, cold, claustrophobic, alive, with silence. And then it hit him. He was lying flat, arms pinned to his sides, wood above his face, dirt smell all around him. He tried to move his legs and couldn't. Tried to turn his head and hit the side of something solid. He was in a coffin, an actual coffin, underground, alone. Now, look, this wasn't a prank. Nobody was waiting outside with a camera. No hidden film crew. No bachelor party gone wrong. No weird YouTube social experiment. This was real. This was someone burying him alive. And whatever reason they had, didn't matter at that moment. All that mattered to Mark was surviving it. Let me give you the backstory, because trust me, this part is important. Mark was 28, one of those people you'd describe as just a good guy. Lived in a quiet suburb on the edge of a mid-sized city, nothing too remote, but with enough green space around for a hiking lover like him to thrive. He had a small 2-bedroom apartment he shared with his longtime friend, Jenna. They weren't dating, just solid roommates with good boundaries and way too many inside jokes. Like they had weekly pizza nights and a shared spreadsheet of weird trail names. Mark wasn't flashy. He didn't crave attention, but people noticed him anyway. In all the local hiking Facebook groups, he was the dude that always replied when someone asked, "Hey, is Trail 27 safe during winter?" Or, "Anyone seen that weird abandoned bus near Red Pine Ridge?" He'd drop pins, weather tips, sometimes even maps he sketched by hand. He didn't just hike, he explored, and he loved helping others do the same. To his neighbors, Mark was that chill, dependable guy. Took in your Amazon package when you weren't home. Helped an elderly couple fix their broken fence one summer without being asked. Never loud, Never. Rude. Just present. The kind of presence that makes a neighborhood feel safer without anyone realizing why. So, when Jenna came home one random Sunday evening after a Target run and Mark wasn't there, she didn't panic. His keys were gone, so maybe he was out for a walk. That wasn't weird. But his phone? Still on the kitchen counter. Screen face down, next to his wallet. And his laptop? Still open on the couch with a paused video about what not to do if you're lost in the woods. A bit ironic looking back. The weirdest part, his coffee. Still warm. And there was a streak of something reddish-brown along the rim of the mug. Jenna thought it was maybe rust from an old spoon, or just weird lighting. But later, turns out it was blood. At first she thought, okay, maybe he cut his lip or something. Maybe he left his phone behind because it was charging. Maybe he walked to a friend's place. She even messaged him on Instagram just in case. Nothing. Still, no real alarm. Not yet. By Monday morning, he still hadn't shown up. No texts. No posts. His work hadn't heard from him, which was super out of character. Mark hated being late, even to Zoom meetings. That's when Jenna posted a missing person notice in 2 big local Facebook groups. Hey, anyone seen Mark Johnson? Last seen Sunday around 3 p.m. Lives near Maplewood. Might have gone out for a walk. Didn't take his phone or wallet. Please DM if you've seen him. She included a recent photo. Mark smiling at the top of a mountain with his windbreaker half-zipped and a Snapple bottle in one hand. The kind of guy who looks like nothing could ever go wrong in his world. People replied. A lot of people. Dozens said they hadn't seen him, but they'd keep an eye out. A few shared it to other groups, and then something strange came up. One of the group admins messaged Jenna and said, hey, this is probably nothing, but Mark posted in the group chat last week about checking out a trail near Devil's Hollow. Said he was curious about some weird symbols carved into a tree there. Jenna blinked at the message. Mark hadn't mentioned that to her. She started digging through his laptop. His tabs were still open, Google Maps marked with a pin way out near a trail he'd visited maybe once before. It wasn't a popular route. More like one of those locals-only places people whisper about in Reddit threads. A place that used to be a mining path. Rumors about cave-ins, disappearances, and cult stuff. You know, the usual backwoods. Urban legends. Mark had even downloaded a satellite image of the trail. Zoomed in all the way. There were markings. Shapes. Circles. By now the vibe had shifted. No one could reach him. No recent sightings. His phone pinged once. Just once. Sunday. Evening around 4:11 p.m. near that same remote trailhead. After that, radio silence. No texts, no camera footage from nearby shops, nothing from his bank account. It was like he'd just slipped out of the world. By Wednesday, the police got involved. They did a formal search of the Devil's Hollow area, brought in dogs, drones. Even a few volunteers from the hiking groups joined in. Still nothing. Not a backpack, not a jacket, not a trace. It was as if Mark had walked into the woods and never came back out. Three days in. It was a cold, miserable afternoon. One of those gray skies that feels like it's pressing down on your skull. Jenna was at home, barely holding it together, scrolling endlessly through Reddit threads about missing persons, obscure trails, even urban legends around Devil's Hollow. She hadn't slept much. Her phone kept buzzing, but most of the messages were just more dead ends. More people saying, "I hope you find him," or worse, "Sorry for your loss." Then, her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't pick it up, but something, gut instinct, fate, whatever, made her swipe answer. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was a man, older sounding, a bit shaky. "Hi, this is gonna sound weird, but I think I found something." Or, "Someone." Jenna froze. "What?" "I'm a land surveyor, working near that old abandoned church. Off Route 11, you know, the one they're trying to turn into an art space. Anyway, I was checking the ground for old septic lines and, I found a box. Like a coffin, I think. It was buried maybe 2 feet deep. But there's blood. A lot of blood, and there's someone inside. Jenna's heart went nuclear. She couldn't breathe. Are you saying... Is it Mark? Is he... I didn't open it all the way, but he's alive. Barely. You need to come. Now. She didn't ask questions, just bolted out of the house. Called 911 while driving like her car was on fire. When she arrived, the scene was surreal. Yellow tape. 2 cop cars. Paramedics kneeling beside what looked like a rotting wooden crate pulled halfway out of the earth. The lid was off, cracked, in half. Mud everywhere. Blood soaked into the inner walls of the box. And in the middle of it all, curled up like a half-buried animal, was Mark. He was pale. Lips blue. Eyes sunken. Dirt embedded in his fingernails like he'd tried to claw his way out. His shirt was soaked in a mix of sweat, blood, and rainwater. He wasn't really awake, but his eyes flickered when he heard Jenna's voice. The medics swarmed in, wrapped him in thermal blankets, IVs, oxygen. They said he was in advanced hypothermia, severe dehydration, bruising along his chest and ribs, maybe from being shoved into that box. Oh, and the kicker? They estimated he'd been down there for nearly 2 full days. 48 hours, buried alive. That alone would have been enough trauma for 10 lifetimes. But here's where it gets real weird. Because after they got him stable and moved to the hospital, Mark started to talk. Not much, just little pieces, slurred, disoriented. But enough to realize something. He remembered everything. And what he remembered didn't make sense. First, he wasn't taken. In the woods, like everyone assumed. He said he was at home, sitting on the couch, watching a video, had a weird metallic taste in his mouth. And then, bam, he blacked out. Next thing he knew, darkness, tight space, no idea where he was, no air, panic setting in. But then, he heard voices, whispering, not outside the box. Inside. It. Like they were with him, all around him, humming, muttering things he couldn't understand. He thought he was hallucinating, until he tried to move and realized he wasn't alone in the coffin. There were hands, cold, dry fingers, grabbing at his ankles, pulling at his shirt, only for seconds at a time, but they were there. Every time he passed out, he'd wake up to a new scratch on his chest. His wrists, symbols carved lightly into his skin, like someone, or something, was trying to mark him. Like he was being prepared. He swore the box was moving, not shaking, but breathing, expanding, contracting, like a lung. And then, the creepiest part, there were high scratches on the inside of the lid, dozens of them, layers, some from Mark, some older, deeper, and one name scratched over and over again, Jonas. When Jenna heard that, she froze, because Jonas was the name of a guy who'd gone missing 3 years ago, after visiting the same area near Devil's Hollow. His body was never found. Cops initially brushed Mark's account off as trauma-induced hallucination. But Jenna, she believed him, because the box didn't just look old, it was old. The wood had initials etched inside, dried wax stains, runes carved deep into the base. It wasn't a coffin, it was a ritual container, something meant to trap, not just a person, but something else. Mark's medical tests came back strange too. No drugs in his system, but his cortisol levels were off the charts, like near-death experience kind of levels. His fingernails had dirt embedded in them that matched the soil under the church, and not just from 2 days ago, older layers too, like he'd been buried before and resurfaced, and the symbols lightly carved into his skin. Well, they weren't random. Jenna sent photos of them to a professor at the local university who studied archaic symbols. The reply? These are banishment marks, old ones, pre-Christian,
used in burial rites to trap malevolent spirits inside bodies or boxes. In other words, Mark
Wasn't just buried alive, he was bait. And whatever was supposed to stay in that coffin may not have stayed. Can you fully grasp that? Like really let it sink in? You wake up, but your body doesn't register light, because there isn't any. You breathe, and the air is thick, stale, like someone vacuum-sealed a closet with you in it. It smells like old wood rot and, this is important, damp earth. Not mud, not fresh rain, but soil that's been sitting for decades. Dead things in it, worms, roots. Your eyes open, but it makes no difference. Mark said the weirdest part was that his body knew something was wrong before his mind did. His chest was tight. His arms wouldn't stretch past a certain point. His knees were bent unnaturally, jammed into the wall of something. He could feel wood above his forehead, not inches away, touching it and his skin. Cold, not just chilly room cold, but bone-deep, muscle-stiffening, nerve-numbing cold. He blinked again. Still nothing. That's when his brain kicked in. This has to be a joke, he thought. Okay, someone's filming this. Probably Jenna, or Andy from work. Some dark TikTok trend I didn't agree to. A prank. A sick, twisted prank. So he laughed. For real. He actually laughed. But his throat didn't make a sound. It was like his vocal cords had been sandpapered, like his tongue was made of chalk. His lips were crusted, dried and split. Breathing hurt, like dragging air through a straw with holes in it. That's when the fear set in. He tried to move, arms first, pushed outward. Nothing. The wooden walls held firm. He tried sliding his fingers forward, but all he felt was grit. Dry, cold, grit, sand, soil, pebbles. And that meant one thing. He was buried, not just trapped. Buried, alive. The space was narrow, too narrow for any adult to move properly. His shoulders couldn't twist. His legs were pinned. He tried pushing upward with his feet, ramming his head against the top. The result? Splinters and pain. No give. And then, Mark said, there was this terrifying realization that hit him harder than any nightmare. He didn't know how long he'd been down there. Could have been minutes. Could have been days. There were no sounds outside. No rumble of cars, no footsteps, no wind, just silence and his own heartbeat pounding like a war drum in his ears. That's what he heard over and over again. Thump, thump, thump. It felt like it was echoing off the wood around him. E.T. tried to scream again, but his throat locked. Like his own body was telling him, save it. You're gonna need it later. He described the panic as a wave, not a sudden scream and thrash kind, but slow, suffocating, like realizing you're in the middle of the ocean and your legs can't find the floor. A pressure that starts in your chest and radiates out until your vision pulses and your brain just buzzes. And then, in that pitch-black box, Mark did something he never thought he'd do. He started to pray, not a fancy prayer, not religious, just a raw, desperate, please. Please let this be a dream. Please let someone hear me. Please. Let me wake up again. But there was no waking up. Instead, there was scratching. At first, he thought it was rats, clawing at the sides of the coffin, but it wasn't outside. It was underneath him. Mark swore on his life. There were tiny scratches, like fingernails on plywood coming from beneath the floor of the box. Faint, rhythmic, like someone, or something, trapped under him. And just when he thought he was imagining things, the coffin shifted. Just a little. Not enough to call it an earthquake, but enough for the dirt to trickle between the slats. Enough for him to feel something move under his spine. He froze completely, didn't breathe, didn't blink, because at that point he realized he might not be the only thing buried down there. And then he felt it, like the universe flicked his forehead and whispered, "Not yet." Water. Just a drop. At first he thought it was his imagination, his brain making up sensations. But no. There it was again. Plop. Cold. Real. Landed. Right on the center of his chest. Another one. Plop. On his collarbone, then his jaw, then, finally, his lips. Mark didn't even think. His tongue darted out, trying to catch it. He said it was barely anything, maybe half a teaspoon over the course of an hour. But when you're trapped in a coffin underground, that's liquid gold. That's hope. He waited, counted them. 1, 2, 3. 10 drops in, he had enough to coat his dry mouth, enough to wet his lips and make his throat stop feeling like sandpaper. It wasn't much, but it was something. He said in that moment, he didn't cry. He couldn't. No moisture left in his body for that. But the water, it did more than just hydrate him. It told him the box wasn't sealed tight, which meant air was getting in. Maybe not a lot, but enough to keep him breathing. Maybe not forever, but long enough to fight. Mark started thinking, if water can get in through a crack, maybe light can, maybe sound, maybe someone might can hear me if I try again. So he waited until another drop landed, and then he screamed. Well, he tried. His voice came out hoarse, barely a groan, but he did it. Then again, louder, throat raw, lungs on fire. He kicked, slammed his heels into the wood floor of the coffin, over and over. Thud, thud, thud. He kept count between the drops. 10 seconds. Scream. 15 seconds. Slam his fists upward. Another drop. Whisper. Please. Another drop. Scream again. He did this until he passed out, woke up, did it again. He said every time he blinked awake, it was like starting over. The darkness, the pressure, the panic. But that one, steady drip, kept him sane, kept him present, kept him tethered to the idea that this wasn't death. Not yet, and at one point he swore. He heard something, a vibration, not from inside the box, from outside. A tremor in the, dirt above him, like movement. Tools, footsteps. He screamed again, slammed his fists harder, and for the first time since waking up, the coffin responded with a sound he hadn't made. A dull, low thump. Coming from outside. He said it felt like someone knocking back, or maybe he imagined it. But he wasn't stopping now. That drip gave him the smallest, dumbest, most ridiculous form of hope. And that's all it took to stay alive. Mark didn't start kicking wildly in a panic. He got methodical. He found his hands on the inner lining of the coffin, felt the seam. He used his fingers to strip away the lining cloth from the edge. When soil dripped through, he slid those crumbs into his lap. In darkness, his fingers worked through blind patterns, dirt under fingernails, pressure in chest. But he forced himself to breathe slow. He dislodged wood threads until the lid's edge started to loosen. Slowly, painfully, inches at a time. He said it felt like hours. The dirt started to fall in little mounds as the lid lifted a millimeter. His fingers pushed further. The darkness above him became a pinprick of gray light. When the lid cracked open, rain dripped onto his face. Earth tumbled in. He panicked, pushed himself out, then crawled forward. Mud, rain, rainwater filling his nose, but he coughed, he clawed out. That's the real nightmare. Not waking up in a box, but why? And who? And how? Police dug near the box and found footprints, barefoot spray-painted footprints leading toward the church construction site. Masked print. No ID, no CCTV caught them. Police interviewed Mark. He recalled nothing. No memory of being abducted, no strange calls, no one missing him, no demands. Then came experts. Criminologists said it was methodical, silent, building familiarity. The church site was unguarded. At night, maybe a vengeful stalker or someone testing him, but specialist kidnappers said it looks like a captivity testing dubbed buried alive test, something used to check the victim's responses, training someone, or worst, something we can't fathom. Mark tried therapy, but it wasn't like flipping a switch. It was more like dragging yourself uphill. Barefoot, on glass. The nightmares didn't stop, not for weeks, then months, then still. They're just quieter, more subtle. He'd lie, in bed, completely safe, door locked, lights on, and still feel the walls closing in. That phantom pressure on his chest, that same pounding in his ears, his brain whispering, "You're not out yet." Sleep? Yeah, good luck with that. Went days without it. His therapist called it trauma-induced insomnia with claustrophobic panic loops. Basically, his mind refused to shut off. Every time he started drifting, his heart would jackhammer in his chest. Waking up in cold sweats, sure he was buried again. He said the worst part wasn't even the nightmares. It was the dripping. Any time he heard water dripping, faucet, sink, gutter outside his window, he froze. His body went into fight or flight, muscles stiff, breath shallow. He kept hearing that sound, the soft, slow plop of water on his chest inside the box. It had saved him. But now, it was a trigger. That's when the obsessing started. Water bottles, everywhere. One in the kitchen, one in his backpack, one on his bedside table. He couldn't sleep without at least 3 bottles visible at all times. It wasn't about drinking, it was about control. If he had water, he wasn't trapped. If he had water, he wouldn't die. His friends thought he was spiraling. Jenna had to gently remind him to eat, to shower, to go outside, and that's when she suggested something that changed everything. "Maybe," she said, "you need to do something with all this." So he did. Mark turned all that fear into fuel. He found out that the church renovation site, the one where he was found, had been reported for multiple safety violations. The pit he'd been buried in, it wasn't on the blueprints. It had been left unmarked. The soil was loose. There were no night patrols, no check-ins, and worst of all, he wasn't the first person who went missing in that area, just the first to come back. So Mark started talking, to journalists, to local councils, to city planners. He testified in front of safety boards. He told his story, shaking, vulnerable, but real. He helped push a bill that made nighttime construction sites legally required to have live surveillance and daily dig logs. And people listened, because trauma has a weird way of turning you into either a ghost or a warrior. Mark chose the second. These days, he still struggles. The scars are real, not just emotional. His collarbone had to be reset after the medics pulled him out. His fingers sometimes lock up from nerve damage. He keeps anxiety meds in his car's glove compartment, just in case. But he's functioning. He's here. He tells his story because he knows someone out there might need it, not to scare them, but to remind them that survival doesn't end at rescue, that the dark might spit you back out, but you'll still
have to fight it, even in daylight. He doesn't want pity, he wants prevention. Because being buried alive, that's one kind of horror, but living with it, that's a whole other monster. They never found the kidnapper. No clues, no ransom, no confession. Just footprints, water, dirt, a lid, a box, and a living victim. Every time it rains, he sees the coffin in his mind. Every time he feels trapped, he remembers the darkness. And that drip of water, his lifeline. So yeah, if someone ever says, hey, go lie down or see if you can fit in a box, don't do it. If you're a site manager, guard your job sites. And if you're watching this and have stories similar, or scarier, hit the like button and send it to the email in the description. We want to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell if you're into real-life horror, shocking survival, or creepy true encounters. We drop spine-chilling tales like this every week, so stick around. You won't want to miss what's next in dark mysteries and near-death stories.